Good evening. It is Tuesday evening, May 28th, 2024. This is Weather Enthusiast Simcha Lefton. You're listening to Weather with Enthusiasm. We really have extremely fascinating, very interesting weather that's going on across the world right now. Many weather enthusiasts, social meteorologists, other meteorologists are very much focused on the severe weather that's going on across the country. We're going to be focusing on the heat. There's lots of it. The most inspirational part of all this is the expansion of the warmth into the Arctic, which happens every single year. It's strange that it does happen this early, a month before June 21st, but I've been noticing that that's really when it happens. We have some warm temperatures, in fact, so warm that there's even some heat wave warnings and watches which have been issued for portions of Finland towards Lithuania, Poland, that area. As temperatures go into the 80s, we have temperatures going into the 90s as far north as, I believe, 55 or 60 degrees north latitude. We're going to take a look at it in just a moment. We even have temperatures going into the hundreds as far north as 50 degrees north latitude. We have areas hitting 100 degrees Fahrenheit. That's 38 degrees Celsius. That's an isolated spot, but we do have temperatures going well into the 90s. This is by the Caspian Sea. If you go about 50 miles out from the Caspian Sea, you'll see widespread 80s, some 90s, some isolated spots hitting 100 degrees Fahrenheit. It's pretty far up north. And the Astrakhan, maybe it's just 45 degrees north latitude, but you go further north, the heat has made it north of the Arctic Circle. You'll see warmth. We're talking about temperatures over there in the upper 70s, possibly 80 degrees. The inspirational thing about it is just to watch how quickly it happens, and it's due to this setup of our planet to the Earth, the way that the Earth tilts towards the sun in the summertime is just something so fascinating. It allows the solar insolation, INSOL, is most intense when you go all the way up north for the month of June, if you should have clear skies. That's what you need up north. You need clear skies because the sun comes down at a really low angle. So there's at no point during the day is the sun really so strong, but it's the fact that there's 24 hours of sunshine. That's what creates more solar insolation up there than even some of the southern cities. Now, that is inspirational. That's even good news for most people up there. People that it's probably even warming up for swimming. I think we are going to come back to the heat up there in just a moment. But we're going to switch over to the Lu winds happening in India. The Lu winds that are coming out of Pakistan. A lot of times they come with dust and sand and stuff like that. They bring the hottest weather possible into India, and that's what's happening this week. That's been happening for a while. That continues to happen as temperatures go Fahrenheit into just unbelievable levels. Low 120s Fahrenheit, about 50 degrees Celsius. Many places just short of that. But I want to point out that, this heat in India, Pakistan, portions of Iran, Saudi Arabia, that whole area, it's intense and everything. But really, the real inspiration, it's got to be the places up north that are getting extended warmth for the very first time this year. And it's summer warmth, heat on the level of summer. Even for places within heat advisory criteria, it's really not so bad. So it's just going to become more and more consistent as we head into June. Something super exciting for the people up there, and we haven't done this for a while, but I know we have a crowd listening who's so excited and happy, and we would just love to hear it. Hey, thank you, crowd. Thank you, crowd. Okay. Let's go on to the next part. This is the most dangerous part, and we head down into Mexico. Now, people might not pick up on this, but they will pick up on the fact that monkeys, how often do you see monkeys dying in the news? 150, actually today was 157. 157 chimpanzees, I think, monkeys, different, whatever lives down there in Mexico. They are sadly passing away, and experts say that the heat is a variable in this. That is attention grabbing. For those of us who are into weather, we don't need to come onto the monkeys for this to grab our attention. Let me explain why and explain exactly what's going on over there. What we have over there is a heat dome. Now, there's nothing too spectacular about a heat dome. Almost all heat waves have a heat dome, and that's how it gets so hot. But what's unique about this heat dome, besides its intensity, which we've had plenty of others which have been that intense, is the location where it's developing and the time of year. You see, experts tell us that heat domes tend to develop in the area which is most conducive for heating. So a lot of times, let's say in the summer of a drought, you'll get a heat dome, such as in 1988. The heat dome will develop here in the Midwest, maybe over Texas or so, but it will expand into portions of the Midwest. As we just spoke about, the sun might be stronger. The midday sun is stronger the further south you go until you hit the Tropic of Cancer, 23.5 degrees north latitude, in around June 21st. But the solar insolation actually continuously gets stronger as you go north to about 44 degrees north latitude. Then it drops, then it starts to rise again at the Arctic Circle. So due to that, and in a heat dome, you have clear skies, just abundant sunshine. So the place of most conducive heating is actually going to be further north than the tropics. And in a drought year, it's going to be over the Midwest. Because remember, the sun is very efficient at heating dry grounds. The more humid it is, the less efficient the sun is at heating things. With that being said, you also have to realize that humidity also could help out a heat dome, because humid air is actually lighter. It's counterintuitive to what you would think, but it's actually lighter than drier air. So really, humid air, even if there are lower temperatures, it could help the thing expand more than the higher temperature air. You have to have the right balance. In general, we tend to think that the lower humid air with the very intense heat, high temperatures, that tends to do the best job, but not always. So for these types of heat domes, that type of a heat dome, you're going to have to wait until July usually for something like that to form. But you could get something in June if it's an extension of the Bermuda High. The Bermuda High tends to push its front. That one goes all the way from the mid-America to Baltimore, basically, the mid-Atlantic area. You'll just have a front going east to west. It moves north. This is what happened in the year 1994 in June. And it's just hot and humid behind the front. Temperatures in the 90s for highs, dew points in the 70s behind the front. North of the front, you're still dealing with a springtime chill. That's the type of thing that develops in June. You could have an extension of that Bermuda High that continues into July. Well, okay. Now, what we have going on right now is something unique. We have a heat dome that developed in spring. It's not the summer. So the area that's most conducive for heat right now, it's not the U.S. The U.S., it's still too cool. You know, we don't have any tropical area, you know, here in the lower 48 states. It's very close when you go to South Texas or South Florida. But we don't have a tropical area over here. So the sun is not strong enough, and especially when you look at the upper atmosphere, things are not hot enough for a heat dome to form. But here is the thing. You see, that is in a normal situation. In theory, the Gulf of Mexico, if the Gulf of Mexico was dry land, the heat dome could form over there even this time of the year. The only problem is it's not. It's water. So how efficient could the sun be at heating up water? It's not too efficient. So that's why we have to wait until we get later into the season before heat domes form. There's one exception over here. So first of all, Mexico, the actual country Mexico is land. And in Mexico, things could get hot. Things could get hot. That is somewhat of a conducive area for a heat dome to form. They have a large mountain area. You know, Mexico City, which just saw its hottest weather in 150 years, they're on an elevation of 7,000 feet. So, you know, temperatures there hit 94.5 degrees. That was the hottest temperature in 150 years. So Mexico is a borderline. you could get heat domes over there, but the heat dome would have to expand, into Texas, the Gulf of Mexico. What we have going for us over here is the high water temperatures in the Gulf of Mexico. And that combined with the fact that it's still cool every place else because it's not summer yet, makes that right now the hot spot for heat dome. That is the area where it's most conducive for the heat to form, for any heat dome to form. Water temperatures, 86 degrees off the coast of Miami, 83 degrees off of Texas. It doesn't sound too warm. It is above normal, though, by several degrees. Despite the fact, it doesn't sound like, the sun can't really heat stuff like that up to 90 or, it's water. But despite that, that is going to be the warmest spot anywhere in the U.S. for a heat dome to form, especially when you combine that with Mexico. So that's what you have going on right now. Now that we've said that, we have another thing that's very unique. We have a heat dome forming during a time of the year when not only is the sun the strongest, it's forming over an area that's about to receive direct sunlight, and we still have 4 weeks to go. So, in the past, when heat domes form, they form well north of the tropics. They form in July, and, then they kind of weaken when you get to August, especially for hurricanes to come. Right now, we have a solid heat dome already back by May 9th. Even a couple days before, we had a solid heat dome that already developed, and it's only going to intensify because the sun is intensifying right now, and it's occurring over an area that gets direct sun. So the area that is most conducive for this heat dome is also an area getting direct sun. So it's really the high water temperatures and the time of year that it's occurring that's responsible for this super intense heat that's happening in Mexico. There's probably more variables than that, which maybe they will uncover later on. And part of it will always be a mystery, or part of it will always be there's so much to weather that we just don't know. So the driving force again behind all of this is a heat dome. And what has to be figured out, which I think we did a good job right now, is figuring out why is the heat dome developing down there when it usually develops further north. And that has to do with the time of the year when it's forming and the really warm water temperatures in the Gulf of Mexico. And it's a really sad thing for wildlife. It's a really sad thing. Another very dangerous situation that's happening because of this is that the ring of fire that occurs right outside heat domes, that area of constant thunderstorm development. So right now, it's stronger than it could ever be. And I'll tell you why. It's because usually the ring of fire occurs in the month of July. In the month of July, so right outside the ring of fire, you have a contrast of temperatures, but the contrast of temperatures is not as intense as it is this time of the year. We're going from a full force heat dome, something that would occur in midsummer, if even that, to the regular spring air masses with cold air aloft as if it's leftover air from winter. And it's the same areas that keep getting hit with these storms. Houston, Texas, another monster came by today, and power outages even across Mexico. So that's something that's another sad thing to this whole thing. So, it's a very interesting weather map, and what we're still left with the question as to why this doesn't happen before. Why hasn't it happened before? Why is Mexico City receiving the hottest temperatures in 150 years? We covered much of the heat that's going on in the world right now with the talk of Pakistan, India, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates. That area, that's just the normal. In Iran, that's like the normal areas that get hit. It's more intense this year than usual, but, we've been saying that for a number of years. The rapid expansion of the warm air all the way up north in the upper latitudes as winter comes to an end and we go straight into summer. I think we really need to hear a cheer for that one. Hey, very beautiful. I'm glad the crowd appreciates it. I'm just going to read you some of these temperatures that I've seen. I took some screenshots of some temperatures. We have a place, this is today, Tuesday, it hit 81 degrees. This is in Finland. This is 63 degrees north latitude. Amazing. You know, the Arctic Circle is 66.5 degrees north latitude, or 66 and a third. So we have the temperature over there. We hit 81 today. It was 79 yesterday. This is a place which is almost all sunlight right now. We have this place is north of the Arctic Circle. The next place over here, it's not in the 80s yet. We do have temperatures in the mid 70s, dew points in the 50s. We have the high yesterday, Memorial Day, 75 degrees, and the high Sunday, 73 degrees. This was 68 degrees north latitude. I'm just going to read to you a little bit about Mexico City. This comes from the Washington Post. Mexico City soared to 94.5 degrees, both on Friday and Saturday. That's 34.7 degrees Celsius. This is its highest temperature in 150 years of data keeping, according to the country's National Meteorological Service. The capital city also set calendar day record highs above 90 degrees Sunday and Monday. These temperatures might not seem that high, but are exceptional for a city with an elevation of over 7,000 feet. At lower elevations, temperatures were much higher, approaching 122 degrees, which is 50 degrees Celsius. In southern Mexico, the temperature hit 118.4 degrees Fahrenheit, 48 degrees Celsius, at Valle Nacional over the weekend. This marks Oaxaca's, Oaxaca state's hottest day, according to climate historian Maximiliano Herrera. The high of 116.6 Fahrenheit, 47 degrees Celsius, recorded in Monclova, which is a mountain area about 120 miles southwest of Laredo, Texas, set an all-time high for that state. This is not the state of Texas, but this is the state in Mexico that's 120 miles away. The heat is worsening the drought, which affects much of the country, by speeding up the evaporation of water from the land surface. The heat dome responsible for this heat in Mexico has at times flexed northward into the southern United States, particularly southern parts of both Texas and Florida. The heat index, a measure of how hot it feels factoring in humidity, reached at least 115 degrees on Memorial Day at Houston Hobby Airport, which demolished the previous May record of 108 set in 1998. The Dallas, Texas National Weather Service tells us that a ridge will build into the area early next week, which will push temperatures into the 90s for most areas around there. A lack of any noteworthy cold fronts will keep a humid air mass in place through early next week. We have some other spots. You know, Finland is really the peak heating right now. It's not far from Norway or Sweden. Lithuania is to the south. We have a high temperature forecasted to be 100 degrees this Shabbos. This is at 45 degrees north latitude, a little bit east of the Caspian Sea. I don't have the name of the city. We have a place over here at 52 degrees north latitude. A heat wave, a real heat wave. The New York Times definition of a heat wave is 3 consecutive days of 90 degrees Fahrenheit or higher. This is all the way up at 52 degrees north latitude. Friday, Shabbos, Sunday, Monday, highs all days between 90 and 95 degrees Fahrenheit. That's 33 to 35 degrees Celsius. This is like in between the cities of Saratov and Samarala. It is way up north. Moscow, Russia is going way up this week. Temperatures going into the mid-80s, possibly 30 degrees Celsius by this Shabbos again, this Saturday. It's Moscow, Russia. That's 56 degrees north latitude. Regarding what's going to be happening this summer, so forecasters do think that because during La Niña years, heat domes tend to develop in the middle part of the country, they do think that we're going to be seeing an above normal temperature summer. In fact, one of the hottest on records. The Washington Post at one point, and even now, they're saying the hottest on record. The only interesting thing to mention is that last year was also a La Nina year. It was before the El Nino developed, and the heat dome never really did make it. It never really made it into the middle part of the country. It was like every now and then the heat came up north, but in general, the heat remained in South Texas and the Gulf Coast, which is where it is right now. It never really made it up north. Generally, once the dome of heat develops, it stays in that area. It expands, so it would have to expand all the way up here. And so forecasters say there'll be a heat dome. You can get an extension, a secondary high. A lot of times the original one, as we have mentioned, is over Bermuda. And the secondary one, a lot of times, is over Texas. And that brings heat waves here into the Midwest. This one's a little bit more interesting. And it will be interesting to see how the summer manifests itself this upcoming summer. It's really all about the heat dome. You need the solar insolation. And the solar insolation gets you far, but it's limited. The sun alone is really limited in what it could do. Without a heat dome, you really need the heat dome. So the sun could be a powerhouse, but if you don't have a heat dome, the temperatures remain limited, with highs probably without a real heat dome, highs only about 90 degrees. In many locations here in the Midwest, maybe even less than that. It's only when the heat dome comes in, that's when we really start to get the real heat of temperatures in the mid-90s, upper 90s, and sometimes even higher than that. Thank you for listening. I stay safe. I wish everybody... You're listening to Weather with Enthusiasm. We have a powerhouse typhoon which has developed off in the Pacific Ocean. Extreme heat continues over the desert Southwest. A big shockaroo to many of you. This is especially true in regards to what's going to be going on in Alaska. We have parts of the world that are so hot right now. Temperatures are expected to go into the low 130s. What also makes the situation absolutely spectacular over there is the enormous differences between night and day. We have a remarkable weather pattern change that's going to be taking place over the next few days. We're going from one extreme to the next extreme. Small soft hail is falling with the storm. There is a possibility that snow squalls may develop. 27.1 barometric pressure. Feet of snow are falling in Japan when there's intense weather. That's a time of celebration. Just Google weather with enthusiasm and they're all going to come up.